Joining us now for more on the story out of Minneapolis, Minnesota is Coleen Rowley, former FBI special agent. Hello, Coleen. Pleasure to have you join us here on Press TV. Your initial thoughts about this ongoing onslaught, this campaign of genocide that we continue to witness in Gaza, and the fact that, honestly, Coleen, I feel like U.S. lawmakers are finding this issue or making it seem so perplexing, this ongoing support for Israel. Everything about this onslaught, though, is black and white. There are no more gray areas with respect to what is taking place on the ground there and the fact that the U.S. continues to support it.
Yes, I would totally agree with the 14 other nations on the Security Council who voted to have a ceasefire, and I would, cannot understand any rationale. As the Palestinian envoy said, there's no explanation of why the United States would veto a ceasefire to stop this bloodshed after 14 months of genocide. Here's the thing that maybe is not well understood. And Bernie Sanders led, 17, 18 senators trying to stop complicity with Israel. And, the United States, the American people, there's a large majority of people in the United States who want to end this genocide. They agree with Bernie Sanders. So why are there 79 senators who blocked the resolution? Well, the reason for that is outright corruption of our Congress in Washington, D.C. Our House members and our senators, and now we see the election will not really change anything because Trump is appointing a number of Zionists who want to increase war in the Mideast. They actually are, even though they've promised to end the war in Ukraine, they are also promising to escalate the war in the Mideast and, of course, continue the genocide on Palestinians. They say finish the job. So there's a huge discrepancy between the popular opinion, even in the United States, and certainly in the world, and obviously in the world. The world is aligned against this genocide now, more and more, and now with the arrest warrant issued for Netanyahu, it's very clear that the world is aligned against the U.S.-Israel genocide of Gaza and actually now spreading to Lebanon and the West Bank. So how do we, the big question is, what can we do about this corruption in Washington, D.C.? And that's very difficult for us. We're ashamed of it here in the United States, but we keep trying to figure out ways that we can challenge that horrible, that horrible consensus based on money corruption by the Israel lobby.
And a lot of these lawmakers simply don't get it, Coleen. It seems like the blow to America's standing in the world landscape, diplomatically, politically. I mean, many may argue after supporting and being complicit in this genocide, it's literally irreparable.
Let's hope not. We are also perched now on the escalation of nuclear war, even with Russia. So everything is crumbling. And it's very difficult to live during these times when we see the rule of law in the United States not being respected. I studied international law, so I've long known that this was completely violating international law, and yet it's taken all this time just to get to the point where the international courts, ICJ and ICC, have finally come this far. And the question now is, how can this be enforced? But yes, it's very shameful, and I will say one thing, maybe some wiser people. I know a lot of former United States ambassadors, United States military even, former CIA. I know a lot of these people are trying to point out that this is counterproductive to the United States. We lose all of our quote unquote soft power, which is your ability to lead through some kind of morality. And if you give up your morality and you give up the rule of law, it's just very quickly that you have nothing left but the use of military might, the rule of the jungle. And that will then be counterproductive and blow back not only perhaps on the United States, but actually on the rest of the world. I have more hope in the rest of the world if the United Nations could call the General Assembly and maybe enact economic sanctions. There are things that the United Nations can do. And I have more hope with the United Nations now and other countries than I do in Washington, D.C.
And a Trump presidency, Coleen, can this man bring anything different than what we've seen in the past 4 years to the table? And perhaps not as U.S. president per se, as Donald Trump, but as a Republican president, because the Republican Party is much more intimate with leadership in Tel Aviv than the Democrats have been.
Anything is possible. Unfortunately, Trump has selected his cabinet based on two criteria. The first criteria is loyalty to himself. And he learned his lesson from 2016 when the Democrats made up, Hillary Clinton made up Russiagate and all of this. And then he had a number of people in his own administration that were working to backstab him. So his first criteria is loyalty. His second criteria, unfortunately, was loyalty to Israel and the Zionist agenda. So it's really hard to see how Trump will do anything. I will say one thing, though. Trump is a pragmatist. And so he does have a little more grasp of reality. And there is a chance that people could reach him. I know there are some commentators in the United States that have realized how counterproductive this is to the United States. And there is a chance. I don't think it's a big chance, but maybe there is a chance that Trump and some of the better angels that are also talking with him will perhaps convince him to not further arm Israel and be complicit in what Israel wants to do, which, by the way, is to lead the United States into further war. It's not enough to be the Ukraine war and Gaza and all these other places. They actually want to lead the United States into more war. And Trump has said he would be against that. Now, whether he was, falsely promising just to get votes, who knows? But he has said he doesn't want to see further war in for the United States. And Israel is clearly trying to lead the United States into more war.
And shortly after that fourth veto of a ceasefire resolution, Coleen, and this is my final question to you, and I want to thank you for spending this much time you did with us. But immediately after, White House spokesperson came out and said that there was some ambiguity when it came to the language on the captives and their release. But Hamas, under the Biden proposal for a ceasefire back in July, had agreed to release the captives in the midst of a permanent ceasefire. So really, these are just basically, they're smoke screens. Why? I mean, why not seize the opportunity to stop a campaign of genocide against the women and children of Gaza and put this thing to bed? It seems like it would be, except for making money off the war, it seems like it would be in everyone's best interest at this point.
Absolutely in the best interests of everyone in the whole world, and especially including the United States. I have to think that the United States ambassador or assistant ambassador who gave that talk was ashamed. I kind of look at him and I think he feels like he has to say these things. I went to law school and I gave law school commencement speeches, and it's a word that you probably never heard before, about legal pedophagy. And that's how lawyers or shyster lawyers can use little loopholes in the law in order not to follow the law. And that is exactly what you see the United States in vetoing these things. And they're being caught now in their own pedophagy, because at one point they didn't want to be bound by international law. They said, no, the United States, we're submit to the jurisdiction of the ICC and whatever. But they also tried to use the tool of United Nations and humanitarianism. They used that as a pretext. And now they're being caught in this legal pedophagy. The best thing is just to stick with following the law. Don't look for loopholes. Don't look for legal artifice to make up reasons, because you're going to be caught at some later point in contradicting yourself. And that's what's happened to the United States. They're caught now, and the rest of the world can see it, even if Americans are not told about it, because our media is so biased and Washington, D.C. is so corrupt. But eventually this is coming back to haunt the United States. All of these specious legal arguments that they have made in order to be complicit with genocide.
All right. Blessed to have you on. Thank you for spending time with us. Coleen Rowley there out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, former FBI Special Agent. Stay safe, and thank you, Coleen.